So with all of this in mind, our clear call to the policymakers in all the institutions is really to focus on that long-term stability, an end to crisis mode, an end to crisis measures like the revenue cap, and really just help companies to source that renewable energy that they really need.
Exactly, I couldn't agree more. We're talking about massive investments, can go into hundreds of millions of euros. Making that investment decision is not easy. You need to have predictability and visibility on the situations you're going to be operating in. So we need to create a properly functioning liquid market. We had one. Unfortunately, over the past couple of years, we've had quite a lot of interventions that have distorted the market. But if we can go back to a properly functioning liquid and competitive market, then that's a great start. And beyond that, we can look at what further market-based measures we might need in order to help more companies sign PPAs and secure that competitive supply of electricity that they need.
So let's look a bit more in detail at the barriers. So if we zoom in on the European Parliament, the MEPs have been tabling their amendments, and there's a few new ideas in there that the aim really would be to remove barriers to PPAs. But how helpful do you think those new ideas would be? I'm talking about standardised PPA contracts, I'm talking about EU databases, platform trading for PPAs. You know, as an energy buyer, what is your response to these ideas that have been coming out of the Parliament?
On the first hand, the focus on removing the barriers to PPAs are fantastic, but some ideas there are better than others. If we look at standardizing contracts, it's important to understand that any single PPA is a negotiation where you have to allocate a series of very significant risks between the two parties. Now, the way this happens, it varies from contract to contract, from case to case. It depends on many factors, including what RES assets we're talking about, who the consumer is, what their consumption profile is, and also the risk appetite of the various parties that are involved. So going too far on standardizing these contracts takes away that flexibility to negotiate and to allocate these risks, and would actually make it more difficult to sign a PPA. So we would call for take it easy on standardizing. What is helpful though is to have template contracts that are available and can be a starting point for these negotiations. 𝐸-Source, as you well know, together with 𝐸𝐹ET, have already developed one of these contracts. It's been used by a lot of companies that have already signed PPAs. Ours is one of them. It's been a starting point for many of these negotiations. So having those template contracts is fantastic, but we should not go beyond that and standardize the specific terms of the deals.
Absolutely. No, crystal clear. And I suppose looking at that EU PPA database, you know, I think what we're hearing is perhaps a bit of a narrative that people don't really understand PPAs, it's not so transparent, it's two companies working together. But, you know, is that any different to how you might procure gas or any other type of electricity?
Well, there's been, it's one of these sort of myths that has come up about the lack of transparency of PPAs. This is absolutely not the case. And I can tell you, any time a company signs a PPA, this is something that you want to shout about from the rooftops. Anytime we as a company have signed PPAs, we're immediately on LinkedIn or Twitter announcing it to the world, as do every other company. It's something you can be proud of, it's something that brings good publicity, and it's something that shows that you are forward-looking and contributing to the energy transition. One more point on this is that, especially for the size of PPAs, the volumes of electricity that we're talking about for big industrial consumers like ourselves, they tend to exceed the thresholds that are foreseen in the REMIT regulation for disclosure towards the National Regulatory Authority. So that also adds another layer of scrutiny. There's absolutely no problem at all with the transparency on PPAs.
So what would you put in that press release typically? The volumes, whether it's solar and wind, what other things would you be happy to reveal?
It's the volume, it's the location. I mean, price is usually not there for competitive reasons. That is an issue that goes far beyond PPAs. There are very good reasons why you cannot talk about prices. We'd have 𝐷G over at Madhu chasing us down. But just about anything else that is relevant is out there. 𝐸-Source has actually done a fantastic job of gathering all of this data as it's announced and publishing it on your website as well.
Absolutely. So happy to be transparent, whereas pricing structures would be a red line and make it really difficult for companies to then actually go out and sign a PPA if they had to reveal that kind of information. Is that right?
It's the one thing, and the other thing we'd have to look at is whether it's even legal to do so.